Hello, we are back again. There are very important aspects of mathematics I want us to look at. There are things I want us to take note of before we go into looking at solutions in indices. These are basic part of things you need to know. But before we do that, help to follow it, subscribe, like it, and share it to your loved ones. It will do you a favor. So this is what I want us to take note of. 1. If you have a raised to power x times b raised to power minus y, this is the same thing as saying a raised to power x times 1 all over b raised to power y, because it carries a negative index. So it becomes the reciprocal of the base times the index here, y. And this is the same thing as saying a raised to power x times 1 all over b here, b raised to power y. So, and this is the same thing, a raised to power x times 1. Anything times 1 is that thing. So we now have a raised to power x all over b raised to power y. So this is one of the points I want you to take note of. So the second point I want you to take note of is if you have a raised to power minus x times b raised to power minus y. This is the same thing as saying this has a negative index. So it becomes the reciprocal of 1 all over reciprocal 1a the base raised to power x times 1 all over b raised to power x y. So this means 1 times 1 times 1 all over a raised to power x times b raised to power y. So now 1 times 1 is 1 all over a raised to power x times b raised to power y is the same thing as saying a x times b y. So take note of this, because we are going to make good use of it when we are solving problems in mathematics. So let us look at the third point I want you to take note of. A raised to power x all over b raised to power minus y. So this is the same thing as saying a raised to power x divided by, this means a raised to power x divided by b raised to power minus y. So you have a raised to power x divided by, this has a negative index, become the reciprocal 1 all over b raised to power y. And we have ax. In mathematics, we can't divide fraction like this. When there's division sign, you change the division sign to multiplication sign, and you are going to have times. And when you are changing division sign to multiplication sign, you invert the right hand side of the equation. That is to say, this is the left hand side and this is the right hand side. You take the denominator up and bring the numerator down. So now we have changed it. We have b raised to power y all over 1. So this is the same thing as saying ax times b raised to power y all over 1. So ax times y is the same thing as saying ax by all over 1. And anything divided by 1 is that thing. Now have ax by. So take note of this, because it's very important. We are going to make good use of it while we go ahead to solve problems in mathematics. So the next thing I want us, again, the fourth point I want us to take note is fourth point, a raised to power x times b raised to power y all of divided by a raised to power n. So in this case, this is a raised to power minus x. Sorry, this is a raised to power minus x times b raised to power y divided by n a raised to power n. So this is the same thing as saying, this is the same thing as like this, a raised to power minus x times b raised to power y all over a raised to power n. So this negative index will become 1 all over a raised to power x times b raised to power y all over a raised to power n. So from here, it become 1 times this, become 1 times b raised to power y all over a raised to power x times a raised to power n. So 1 times b raised to power y is b raised to power y. Like I said, 1 times anything is that thing. So a is now have a raised to power x times a raised to power n. So this is, take note of this thing because it's going to help us. It's going to help you seriously because you need to take note of these processes. So we are going to look at the 5th point. The 5th point we are going to look at is, we have say a all over b divided by c all over d. This is the same thing as saying a all over b divided by c all over b. Like I said, when you are dividing fraction, you change the division sign to multiplication sign. You do that by inverting the right hand side of the equation. And this is the left hand side, this is the right hand side. So you are going to have a all over b times b all over c. So we have inverted, taking the denominator of the right hand side up and bring the numerator down. So in this case, this is the same thing as saying a times b all over b times c. So we are going to have ab all over bc. So take note of this important aspect. That is what I want us to take note seriously. So another aspect I want us to take note again is we might have a all over b divided by c. This is the same thing as saying a all over b divided by c. So a all over b, we change, since it's fraction, we change multiplication sign by the division sign to multiplication sign. This is a numerator. So you have a denominator of 1. This is the same thing as saying c divided by 1. So you now have a all over b times 1 all over c. So here means a times 1 is a, b times c is bc. So take note of this. This is a very important aspect of mathematics I want us to take note of. So in our next lesson, we are going to apply this, because in our next lesson, we're going to see some of the solutions of indices. Most of these things will come up, and in other topics you will see them. So stay updated in this channel by following this channel, liking it, and sharing it to your loved ones. For those who are in the higher institution, you need this. Some of the teachers, some people are interested in mathematics. In the secondary school, you need this. It is very, very important. So take note as we meet in our next class. You're welcome.